Good afternoon, everybody. The Minnesota Senate Committee on Rules and Administration is called to order. It's April 23rd, 2026. It is 3:45 in the afternoon. There are 4 issues before us today, and we're going to begin with Senate File 4898, Senator Westlin. Members, there is both an explanation and amendments in your packet, as well as bill language. Welcome to the committee, Senator Westlin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate File 4898 is the quintessential good governance bill. And just to be clear, Senator, because this does fall within the jurisdiction of the committee, do you want me to move the amendments and then do a little bit more explanation of the bill? Okay, I shall do that. I would like to move to ask
Senator
the committee to move.
Senator Westlin, which amendment would you like to begin with?
Pardon me?
Which amendment would you like to begin with?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are so far away from each other. I would like to move the A3 amendment first.
Senator Marty moves the A3 amendment.
And
Please
Madam,
proceed.
thank you,
Senator
Madam
Westlin.
Chair and members. This is a delete everything from the original bill because it was just easier and more clear to do it this way than to make smaller amendments. As I mentioned, this is in fact a good governance bill. When someone receives an email from the minnesotasenate.gov or a call with a caller ID that says Minnesota Senate, there should be implicit trust that in fact that person has the authority to reach out and is representing the state Senate. They should be able to trust that they are in fact affiliated with the legislature and know that that communication is an official communication from a member of the legislature, an employee, an officer, an intern. Individuals with access to Senate or emails from the other chamber, phone numbers or assigned offices without affiliation to either body have the ability to misrepresent our legislature, knowingly or unknowingly. This bill is to do a quick walkthrough, Madam Chair and members. Subdivision 1 states that a member, officer, or employee of the Senate or House of Representatives is prohibited from establishing a legislative email address for or assigning a legislative telephone number to a person who is not a member, officer, or employee of the Senate or the House of Representatives. Subdivision 2 states that the legislative telephone number is actually assigned to the district. It is for the exclusive use of the member of that district, and if authorized by the member, an employee who is assigned to support that member. Office space is for members and it is for the legislature. Subdivision 3 states a member, officer, or employee of the Senate or House is prohibited from allowing a contractor or other person who is not a member, officer, or employee to permanently or temporarily office in a space assigned to the Senate or the House of Representatives without written notification to the leaders of each caucus in the relevant body. And then lastly, Subdivision 4 provides for enforcement, and it does direct the Senate and House to adopt rules to implement this section, including remedies. This is not just about public trust, but it is very much about public trust. And it is about ensuring that we are good stewards of our taxpayer dollars, that our resources are not being used for improper purposes, and also it is for the purpose of maintaining a high level of security and cybersecurity. So that is the bill in a nutshell, Madam Chair. I do also have a very small amendment to the A3.
Thank you, Senator Westlin. Before we proceed, I would like us to vote on the A3 to get this in the order that we need it to be in. Members, all those in favor of the...
I wanted to ask some questions about it. May I?
Generally, we give the author the ability to get the bill into the order.
Is this an author's amendment?
This is, yes, it is an author's
Oh, I'm
amendment.
sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't realize that.
Yeah, it is.
Hasn't been heard anywhere else.
Nope.
Okay.
Oh,
It was heard somewhere else.
all right.
Sorry.
I have been running to too many things today.
understand.
Senator Rest, please proceed with your questions.
Yeah, thank you. I'm trying to understand what situation is this bill a solution to? I mean, do we have, are these gross violations that we have encountered? I mean, it sounds like language from outer space kind of thing, Senator Westlin, and I mean, I guess it's okay, but what problem is it solving?
Madam Chair and
I
Senator,
mean,
Senator-
identify the problem and give me examples.
thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator
Thank you, Madam
Westlin.
Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator. I do have a specific example that I can provide to you. There was a situation that occurred in the other body. It occurred last year when there were lawsuits happening, when the other body had not officially organized, when they provided email addresses, official House email addresses and phone numbers to outside parties who were not members or officers or employees. And in fact, they were partners in a law firm of one of the members. And that member allowed those partners to file official documents with the Supreme Court that listed the House email, the House phone number, and the House address as their official, on their official notice of representation in the Supreme Court. And so this is a bill that I will say my partner in the other body did a considerable amount of work on, and she brought me in on this. And this is to ensure that going forward, that this does not happen again.
Senator Rest.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Senator Westlin. Couldn't it just be cured by changes in House rules? That you can't do this, or Senate rules? Why does it need to be in the statute? And I'm assuming a violation of this becomes a misdemeanor.
Senator Westlin.
Madam Chair and Senator Rest, I think that there is a lack of confidence that maybe those would be adopted without a direction from statute that they actually they must adopt those rules.
Just one final comment.
Senator Rest.
If it's 67-67,
How will
this
you
isn't going to
do?
pass in the House, whether it's a rule or a law. I guess I'm going to vote for it, but it seems like overkill to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rest. Further questions? Seeing no further questions, all those in favor of the A3 amendment offered by Senator Marty, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say no. The motion is adopted. Senator Westlin also has an A5 amendment. Senator Marty will move the A5 amendment.
This just simply adds interns, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Marty. Senator Westlin?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There was some concern in consulting with nonpartisan staff that if we did not include intern, they are not technically considered employees, and we do want to be able to allow them to have an email address and the ability to use the telephone, and that they can office here. So it is important to include that.
Members, questions on the A5 amendment? Seeing no questions, Senator Marty renews his motion on the A5 amendment. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say no. And that motion is adopted. We have before us Senate File 4898. Senator Westlin, do you have closing remarks?
Madam Chair, I will just simply say again that I gave a very high-level description of what the issue is that we are trying to address here. I'm happy to have other conversations, but this is, in fact, a situation where there were misuse of state assets. And considering the fact that we want to be good stewards of public resources, and we want to ensure that communications from the legislature are communications from actual members of the legislature. I think that this is important, and I appreciate your support and ask for your vote.
Members, any further questions on Senate File 4898? I'm sorry for the whispering over here. I will say, Senator Westlin, that I am grateful that you're bringing this forward, and perhaps it is right that it could be dealt with in rules. But I think if there's a concern about the use or misuse of public funds and public resources, it is important for us to put that into the law. So I appreciate you bringing it forward. With that, members, Senator Marty moves. Oh, here, Senator Marty moves the provisions of Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 6 be suspended for all further proceedings on Senate File 4989, and that the committee report as amended do pass. All those in favor, please say aye.
It's 48. I
Aye.
think you said the wrong number. The number on the agenda is 4898.
That's what I said.
I thought you said 49.
I'm going to renew my motion, renew Senator Marty's motion. Senator Marty moves that the provisions of Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 6 be suspended for all further proceedings on Senate File 4898, and that the committee report be as amended do pass. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And those opposed say no. And that is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members.
Thank you, Senator Russ, for catching that. Senator Kunesh. Welcome to the committee, Senator Kunesh. You're here with Senate File 3593, which is a constitutional amendment, which is a provision that must be heard in the Rules Committee. Welcome to the committee, and please present your bill.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. This bill is a proposal to amend Minnesota Constitution to modernize the permanent school funds distribution policy to balance the needs of our current and our future generations while ensuring that the fund remains a perpetual resource for Minnesota students. The Permanent School Fund was established when we became a state in 1858 as a self-sustaining perpetual source of educational funding. The fund consists of publicly traded stocks and bonds that were purchased with revenues from the management and sale of school trust lands. The Minnesota Constitution currently restricts distributions from the fund to interest and dividends only. Gains that could be realized from the sale of stocks or bonds that have increased in value or are not available for distribution based on this constitutional framework. The fund has experienced strong growth due to investment returns and land management revenues. It has doubled in value over the last 10 years and tripled over the last 15 years. The current constitutional restrictions result in a disproportionate share of this growth compounded for the benefit of future generations at the expense of the current generation of students. Over the last 10 years, distributions from the fund have averaged only a 2.5% of the value of the fund, while growth over the same period has been 8%. Moreover, the current constitutional restrictions are out of step with best practices at permanent school funds in other states, as well as other educational endowments. This legislature created a task force to evaluate whether potential changes to the Constitution and related statutes are warranted, and after a year of analysis and research, the task force recommended 3 things. The Minnesota Constitution be amended to state the enduring principles and objectives of the fund, specifically that A, the fund be maintained into perpetuity, and B, it be used to fund schools. The fund's specific distribution policy and operation details should be specified in statute rather than the Constitution. And the last one is the distribution policy should be modernized to provide for 4.5% of the average value of the fund over the preceding 3 years. This recommendation would protect and preserve purchasing power of the fund while allowing it to provide future funding for schools into perpetuity. It would better balance the needs of current and future generations of students. It will provide more consistent annual distribution to schools, and it would better align the permanent school fund with best practices in other states and in other educational endowment nationwide. And that is our constitutional amendment.
Thank you, Senator Kunesh. Members, do you have questions for Senator Kunesh on Senate File 3593? Senator Limmer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So are we acting on a question of whether the bill is late, or are we acting more like a policy committee now because of the constitutional amendment status?
We are here talking about the policy in front of us as the Rules Committee.
Then I have a question, Madam Chair.
Please proceed, Senator
Yeah,
Limmer.
thank you. Senator Kunesh, could you tell me what the balance is on this existing fund?
Let me look, but I believe it is approximately, let's see. I don't have my other notes with me. I believe it is approximately, is it 53? Let's see here. Okay. Fiscal year 2025, $2.3 billion.
And
Senator Limmer.
Madam Chair, Senator Kunesh, the 4.5% that's being referenced, would that distribution be based on an equal basis per school district, or would it be some type of formula that would be dispersed perhaps by a ratio of need or population in a school district? Is it on a per pupil basis? Or is that something that we're just authorizing the legislature to determine in the event that the question would be passed, and then the legislature would resolve that distribution later?
Senator Kunesh.
Historically, it has been a per pupil formula, and it will continue that way.
Okay. And one last question.
Senator Limmer.
Is there an estimate of what each school district might, on average, get per pupil?
Per pupil?
Yeah.
Yes. And
Senator
again,
Kunesh.
I don't have that. Let me grab my notes.
Madam Chair, well, Senator Kunesh is looking for that. The only reason I'm asking this question is I'm trying to determine, is it worth doing? Is it worth bringing this question to a constitutional amendment? It seems it may be, I would think that the public might have a hard time understanding the question, but maybe I'm not giving the public enough credit. And any constitutional question, I'd always ask, are there supporters that would be there to promote the question to the public as well, and who might they be?
So perhaps Senator Kunesh can answer your first
Perhaps,
question
yeah.
and then follow up with an answer to your second question. You may have to pose it again for her. Senator Kunesh.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to be sure I had the right number, but currently it is at $68 per student, and that's since 1858, that's all it's grown. With this 4.5% increase, it would bring it to approximately $120, $122 per student.
Per year?
Per year, yes.
Okay.
And that's a distribution 2 times a year in March and then September.
Senator Limmer. Did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, the question, maybe you could, I'm trying to get a reference or a scale for that dollar amount per student, and I haven't reviewed school funding formulas in a long time. Is it worth doing? Can you tell me if this is worth doing this year?
Senator
Overall,
Kuhn.
we have raised our spending in the state of Minnesota. I think the proportion for education dollars certainly has grown with that increase in revenue. And so I guess I'm a little cautious. Why are we needing to spend even more money now? And maybe I could get a little insight on that.
Sure.
Senator Kunesh.
Well, I think any time that we can find additional funding for our schools that is not going to cost the state legislature, it is not going to cost the taxpayers any dollars at all, then we are doing the service to our students and we are meeting the requirements of this school trust fund. We know that schools could use every penny that they can get their hands on. Many schools are struggling, trying not to build their class sizes so large, it's almost impossible to teach. We know that many of them are in negative operating statute, and we have full support from all of the schools and the school districts and the different school groups like the school board and those sort of entities. Very excited about this opportunity. And I think the task force was very, very intentional in making sure that while we can increase it in this time and space, that they are still protecting that corpus for the future. And so I think we would be doing ourselves and our students and our school districts a huge disservice not to take kind of advantage of this at this time.
Madam Chair.
Senator Limmer.
This is similar to discussions on pensions. You know, we have a balance of money. It's held by the state. It was created a long time ago. And I'm assuming, the way I'm perceiving it, we're simply changing the dividend that's expected. Am I following that correctly? And that it would be dispersed anytime. Is this an increase of 4.5%, an increase than what it is now?
Yes.
Senator Kunesh.
Sorry, Chair. Yes, currently it's at 2%, and we are increasing it to 4.5%.
Senator
The
Limmer.
only other last question, have we had any actuarial studies to determine if 4.5% puts us in danger sometime in the future? And what do they have to say about it?
Senator Kunesh.
Thank you. And we do have a few of our experts from SBI here, if you do have any more detail, but they did a very intentional look into what is the comfort level, what is the span of distribution that would still protect the corpus and the fund without kind of giving us the maximum, the biggest bang for our buck. What is the best return that we can do? I can tell you at one point we kind of considered bumping it up to 5%, but our experts suggested that we start out at that 4.5%, see how it goes, and if the fund continues to grow as it has over the last few years, as you've heard, we would be able to adjust that both up and down. Should things go south, then we would be able to adjust it to a lower amount. But that 4.5 was an amount that they felt most comfortable at.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Limmer. Are there other questions for Senator Kunesh? And seeing no questions, Senator Marty. Senator Marty moves that Senate File 3593 be recommended to pass. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And those opposed say no. And that motion is adopted. You're on your way.
6 miles, and that you should have done the whole school trust land and how the director position.
Write it out a
was
grid,
created.
and do out a grid, and be 6 and 16.
That'd have been funny.
Welcome to the committee, Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Hoffman, you are here today with Senate File 4073, and then behind that, Senate File 1717, which are what we affectionately call late bills. And So the only reason that you are here is to tell us why the bill is late and not about the substance of the proposal.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. It is late because it did not make the appropriate timelines. And so we're seeking that you extend that and let us move forward so that we can get all the other memorial bills that we've put together to be done at the same time.
we're-
Simple as that. It's just, that's it. I could give you an excuse that, I was on Highway 610, and because there's no signage that really matters on 610 right now, if you would change that to the Melissa Hortman signage, then I probably would have been on time, but I had this, traffic is really bad, especially in Maple Grove, Madam Chair, unbelievable traffic. You'd think, good senator from Maple Grove would have been on the corridors of commerce, would have got that taken care of a few years ago. So, thank you.
Senator Limmer?
Sir Hoffman, you might remind you that you were on my bill.
I was.
So Senate File 4073, Senator Hoffman's bill, will be heading from here to Finance. Do members have questions? Senator
Hey,
Johnson?
Madam Chair, thank you. And thank you for that detailed explanation, Senator Hoffman. But just want to dig into it a little bit. I know there's been a number of bills that have been floating around regarding this subject for quite some time. Do you want to just describe, what the delay in the deadline, missing the deadlines were, both first, I don't know exactly which ones you missed, first, second, third deadlines to bring it here?
Senator Hoffman?
Madam Chair and members, no, it just got swept up and it was delayed. It's kind of like when you have 7,000 bills that are dropped in one session. It didn't make the timeline. I don't have a reasonable excuse. I could give you one, but I don't have one. That's all I got for you there, Senator Johnson.
Senator Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. Usually when we have late bills, it's typically because we're organizing the bills and maybe stakeholders have not been able to put in for a bill yet. Maybe there's some consensus that's coming and we've got to work around getting some negotiations done and different things like that. But it seems a little bit like we're kind of thumbing the nose at the committee when we say we didn't meet the deadline, so here we are, we're going to run it through anyways.
No, I didn't, Madam Chair.
I appreciate that. I know there's a lot of work and a lot of things going on, but some of these bills are very important. Some of them, are just take time to get done. I get that sort of thing, but this is a very serious committee. This is an issue. This is the work of the people, and so to come in here and simply say, "Yeah, I didn't get it done on time. Now we're going to just run it through," does strike me a little bit and a little in a flippant way, and I hope that is not the future precedent that we're setting for this committee in allowing bills to move forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Johnson. Senator Hoffman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Senator Johnson, I didn't mean to be flippant. That's not my intention here. We had multiple conversations about doing memorial packages, that we're going to be able to get them together in this. There was especially conversations including with the DNR regarding the park. There was lots of conversations going on in that. And literally, I was being honest when I said it didn't make the deadline. And that's, it was our intent and my intent to get everything as fast as I could to Senator Marty's committee so that they could have the conversation on whether or not this would be part of that larger package. And so then I personally get caught up in the human services work that we're doing, and specifically the integrity work, which is huge this year, and of course the policy bill, which we just did on the floor. So please understand, Minority Leader Johnson, there's not, by all means was I trying to be flippant. I was being honest about the fact that I don't have an excuse for you other than the work that we were doing at hand. So.
Thank you, Senator Hoffman and Senator Johnson. As we talked earlier, there are a number of proposals that are coming together, and they've come through different committees that are going to constitute a package of bills that serve as a memorial to the Hortmans. And Senator Hoffman is managing I think, all of that legislation. I also understand that the fiscal note for this proposal has been slow in coming and complicated, and there's been some contesting about the fiscal note itself. So there's been a lot of work put into these proposals that'll come together in finance, I think, tomorrow. And I just wanted to make sure that we had this one through this important committee so that we can take that work up tomorrow together in the Finance Committee. Are there other questions for Senator Hoffman? All right, then. This is going to move to the Finance Committee. Senator Rest moves that the provisions of Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 6 be suspended for all further proceedings on Senate File 4073 and that the previous committee report be adopted. All those in favor, please say aye. 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 And those opposed, please say no. And that motion is adopted. Thank you, everyone. And then one last bill. This is Senate File 1717. This is a proposal. Please hold. This is a proposal that has to be considered on the policy itself, if you take a look at the bill, and it is also a late bill. Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. The issue here was lots of, Melissa Hortman had a conversation about making the state capital a state park because then she could go and access various other funds in order to build some trees. That conversation, trees, when we first initiated this bill, got deep conversations within Sandy Pappas's, Senator Pappas's committee, as well as a discussion with the other body on what should this look like and where should this look like, including a collaborative effort, and this is where the work came in. This is why, Senator Johnson, to your point, I'm going to be honest here, there was lots of other people working on this as well, trying to get consensus about what this should or could look like. And as this morning, when we presented this bill, we had the Assistant Commissioner Bob Meyer, who was representing all of administration, all those folks that were involved, the Department of Administration, Department of Natural Resources, the Historical Society, the CAP Area Architectural Planning Board, and that group is really then looked at, well, this should be a task force that should say, how is this going to look? That took some time. In the process, we were going through the different various stops, and that last stop after Senator Pappas, that slowed the process up, and that's why we're here in front of you asking us to get that so we can go on to Senate. I believe this one also would go to Senator Marty as well, and we have finally. It was Assistant Commissioner Meyer had said that there is no opposition to this from all those agencies that I just mentioned, and so we got the sign off. It just took some time on that, so.
Thank you, Senator Hoffman. Questions, members? Senator Hoffman, thank you for bringing the proposal forward. Senator Rest moves that the provisions of Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 6 be suspended for all further proceedings on Senate File 1717, and the previous committee report be adopted and further amended to read, the bill be amended, so when amended, the bill do pass and be re-referred to the Committee on Finance. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. And those opposed say no. And that motion is adopted. You're on your way to Finance. Thank you, Senator Hoffman.
Madam Chair and members, thank you, and have a great day.
Thank
And
you.
to Senator Johnson, I do apologize again. I did not mean to come here in a flippant manner at all. That was not my intention at all. So, thank you.
Apology accepted.
Thank you.
This meeting's adjourned.
You're amazing.